Great. Hello and welcome everyone to the session. Welcome to those who've just joined. Welcome to anyone who might be watching this back on Lightful Academy. And this is our masterclass on understanding your audience. We're going to be looking at how to tailor your digital content and your strategies to reach and engage with the right people. So let's have a look at what we've got in store today. We'll go through our brief intros, our learning outcomes, and then we'll start at the beginning and look at why it's important to know your audience. We'll look at how to collect and use audience insights, gathering data to be able to make informed decisions about your audience and your strategies. And then we'll introduce you to audience personas using Lightful's AI tool. And then we'll share how you can use personas to tailor your content to suit your different target audiences. And we'll wrap up with our next steps. And if you have any questions as we go through, please do drop us a message or raise your hand, and we'd love to chat to you during the session. And just to do some quick intros, my name is Jasmine. It's lovely to see you all online. I know I've met some of you before, some of you might not know me. I'm the digital training lead here at Lightful, and I've got a background in digital marketing, social media management, and I've worked for nonprofits as well as businesses. And personas were a really important part of the work that we did. It was really helpful to understand what audiences we wanted to reach on our different digital channels, because then that really changed what content we created, how we engaged with them, and what we really focused our efforts on in order to best achieve our goals. And I'm also joined by my lovely colleague Simran, so I'll hand over to her now.
Thank you, Jasmine, and it's so great to see so many of you here today and love seeing all the introductions rolling in. As Jasmine mentioned, I'm Simran and I come from 4 to 5 years of experience in social media and outreach within the charity sector, where I learnt the value of identifying your audience groups other than blindly putting out content. And understanding your audience is really one of my favorite topics and part of building a strategy. And we also have a really fun tool, which I'm kind of excited to share later on in the session. But moving on to our learning outcomes. So by the end of the session, you'll be able to define your target audiences, gather and interpret audience insights, and also begin developing tailored personas. So let's crack on. So let's start with the most important question, and that is, why do you need to know your audience? So understanding your audience is a cornerstone of any successful digital strategy, as I and Jasmine just mentioned. And before crafting your approach, it's essential to understand both your existing audience and also your target audience. So it's important to kind of draw that distinction. You need to know who they are, how they currently engage with your content, and also how you'd like to engage them in the future. That's because you can't build an effective strategy without knowing who you're aiming to reach. And that's where audience segmentation comes in. And by dividing your audience into meaningful groups based on demographics, behaviors, or needs, you can then begin to develop personas, which brings those segments to life. And these personas help guide decisions around messaging, tone, and platform selection. So in today's session, we'll be walking you through this process step by step, from identifying your target audience to building personas that can then inform and strengthen your digital communications. And every organization at this masterclass today can really improve how they engage audiences online. And that's why you're all here. Because understanding your audience is the foundation of strategic communications. And when we understand who we're talking to, we can then tailor our content to meet their interests, motivations, and also their communication preferences. And this makes our messages a lot more relevant, useful, and ultimately a lot more effective and more sustainable, which is probably really important when it comes to your work. So ultimately, when we dive deeply to understand our audience, we can then meet them where they are, and that is with content that truly resonates. But I first want to take a quick pulse check. So I'm just going to launch a poll, which is already up and running. If you could take some time to answer the following questions, and that is, do you feel confident in identifying your target audiences? Who are they, and how well do you think you understand them? And also, yeah, just take a moment to answer those questions. Don't worry if you're unsure, that's exactly what this session is for. So I can see all the answers slowly coming in. I'll give it a couple more seconds to get some more coming in. So I can see that a majority of you all are a little bit in the middle section of understanding your audience. So you know a bit about them, but not a lot. And hopefully this session will help give you the tools to kind of think about ways and techniques in which you can help like kind of demystify that. And then in terms of confidence, we've got ratings all across the board, mainly lying within the middle section. So that's a really cool, great place to kind of start for everyone. Thank you for taking the time to answer that. But I'm not done with collecting some insights from you all. And I'd love for you all to kind of either use your phone to scan that QR code you see on the screen or visit slido.com and enter that hashtag number and let us know who are you trying to reach online. So who is your audience or your target audience for your specific organization? And also, if you have any difficulty accessing or trying to get to that page, feel free to enter your answers in the chat, in the Zoom chat. Okay, I can see a lot of answers have just come through. So we've got students, volunteers, corporates who are interested in our social impact work, which is really important. I think that's a really nice specific one. We like getting their intention behind there. Got parents, alumni, funders, and also we've got 18 to 25 year olds, which is also really cool to kind of know the demographics you're trying to target, whether that's your students or your volunteers. We've also got former students and new leads. And we've also got professionals, educators, partners. I like the ones coming in around donors and partners. It'd be nice to kind of see how specific you could go. I like seeing how specific your specifically your audience, like your age group, the location, again mentioning their interest. Um, We've got young people aged 18 to 35, which is nice to see. And then we've also got, oh, we've got loads. Gen Z, that's a really nice one also. And an interesting one to also follow because I feel like their behavior is always changing online. And let's see any last new ones we've got. We've got Carbon Project Developer. I love seeing that one because that is super specific and you know exactly who you're trying to target. Um, Great. So keep those coming in. And feel free to, continue taking a look at this and kind of seeing, yeah, how specific you could go with your audience, because I feel like that's super important. So now let's move on to the next question, and that is, what is a target audience? As I mentioned earlier, it's really important to kind of draw that distinction between your target audience and your existing audience. So, a target audience is a specific group of people that you want to reach, and they are typically the ones that are most interested in your cause and are likely to take the actions that you want. And that's whether that's donating, volunteering, or using your services. And your target audience shapes your messaging. Well, it should shape your messaging, the platforms you use, and even the timing of your outreach. So it's important to dedicate time to thinking strategically about your audiences, as they do often change over time. And that also really depends on your goals, which I'm guessing also changes as you progress and develop um, as you go on with your services. And as much as we'd like to be able to reach everyone, your target audience unfortunately can't be everyone. You do need to get specific and think about the key characteristics of your target audience in order to know how to target them, which is why when I asked that question, I said try and be as specific and pick apart as many details as you can, such as the demographics, age, interest, or even whether they lie on the like education kind of spectrum. Are they students? Have they finished studying? Are they educated or not? But you could go on forever. So if you're unsure who your target audience is, a great place to start is by revisiting your goals and asking yourself, what am I trying to achieve and who is most likely to help me get there? So ask the following questions. Am I looking to reach a new customer segment with my product? Do I need to seek grant funding in order to launch a new project? And perhaps I want to partner with companies who can offer in-kind gifts. volunteer hours, or increased reach for my organization. Or even maybe I need to reach new donors to help diversify my funding or generate online engagement. So we want you to always link your audience decisions back to your SMART goals, the ones that we set in your previous session. And also think about who's already engaging with your organization. So when you're looking at your existing donors and your existing audience and your target audience, it's always important to kind of see the links between them. So see who is currently donating, who is currently using your services, who benefits from your programs, and also who attends your events if you do host them and shares your content. And again, look for shared characteristics such as their age, gender, location, occupation, and also hobbies and interests, which I feel like is a really important one that tends to get overlooked. And these traits help you build a profile of your current audience. And then you could then identify your gaps or opportunities. So maybe there are surprises in your audience base, such as are there any new people that who you need to reach, but you're not currently engaging. And most organizations have more than one target audience, and that's completely normal. It's actually something that we do encourage. And at a high level, organizations often engage with three broad groups. And these are the ones that you see on your screen. And also, I feel like the majority of the answers that you gave in the Slido before. So first we have your funders, and these are the people who contribute financially to your organization. And then we have your service users, which are the people who benefit from your programs or services. And this can also be your customers, subscribers, or users. And then we have your supporters. So your supporters are separate from your funders and your service users. And actually, these are the people who engage with you in some way. So they share your content, they volunteer, they come to events, and maybe they join in on your advocacy work. And to be even more targeted, you can then segment these broad groups into smaller subcategories. And that's actually something we, again, encourage. For example, as you can see on your screen, you could break donors up into individual donors, major donors, or corporate partners. And even with supporters, you could break them up into new supporters or new followers versus long-term advocates. And then we also have your service users, which again, you can then break up based on your age, location, or their specific needs. And how you define these segments is completely up to you, but they should always align with your current goals and priorities. So plugging in the SMART goals that you set in the last session again. You'll also want to do some light research. So whether that's through analytics, surveys, or conversations, and that's important to help you understand who's engaging with you now and also who you'd like to reach in the future. And remember, this is an ongoing process. So it's something that you build, refine, and revisit regularly. It's not something that you do once, and then you consider it granted for your strategy for the next kind of 5 years. Behaviors change, and as the internet is constantly shifting, new channels are coming out, and so is the climate. So it's always important to kind of just dab in and out and kind of make sure you're checking and keeping track with changes. So now let's look at some segmentation criteria. So segmenting helps you move from broad messaging to content that resonates deeply with different types of people. And you don't have to stick to those three segments that we just went through. And maybe you don't have any donors or service users, but you can segment your audience groups and however is most suitable for your organization. You might decide to segment your audience based on demographic, maybe based on their age, their gender, income, or occupation. And again, you will need to think about how your communications will be tailored for each segment that you do create and how this will link back to your overall strategic goals. And then you also might decide that segmenting based on geography is actually better suited for you. So if you offer services in different parts of the world, you can then segment your communications for each region. And you can also research which platforms are most utilized by each region and also make sure that you then tailor your content to the audience group that is living in that region using that platform. So it's like a ladder, there's always so many more steps you could take. And then we have psychographic segmentation, which is best if you want to segment your audience based on their interests, lifestyles, or values. So maybe you offer volunteering opportunities for different projects that you're running. So it's important to kind of evaluate what interests and values the people who would take part or kind of be interested in your organization have, and tailor your content based on those findings. And then finally, you have behavioral. Now, this is based on consumers' previous behaviors with your organization. And some of the main traits within the segmentation type include product or service knowledge, purchase patterns, awareness of your organization, and also service rating. And when you truly understand your audience, you can then communicate with purpose and precision. It allows you to deliver the right message to the right people at the right time, and also, most importantly, in the right way. And this level of focus is key to prompting the outcomes that you care about, whether that's securing donations, encouraging volunteer signups, or mobilizing advocates. And intentional communication with specific audiences drives real results. It also means that you can make smarter use of your resources. So rather than spreading your efforts thin or trying to reach people who are unlikely to connect with your mission, you can actually focus your attention on the audiences who are most likely to engage and take action. And one common pitfall that we see when organizations post the same content across every social media platform is that you're not diversifying your content or catering your content to who exists on each platform. It may seem more efficient to just like mass post your content on each platform, but it often does miss the mark. And that's because your audiences on each platform are often quite different. So LinkedIn users may be more professionally focused and mission driven, whereas Instagram users might prefer emotional storytelling or visually engaging updates. And then Facebook actually might skew older or more community-based supporters. So a one size fits all approach actually risks underperforming across the board. And that doesn't mean that you need to create completely different content for every channel, because that also is rarely realistic. But we want you to focus on what is achievable and impactful, and that is just making simple, thoughtful adjustments, such as rewriting your captions to suit the platform's tone, choosing imagery that maybe resonates with each audience, and also highlighting different aspects of the same story depending on the platform. And this small shift towards intentionality can actually significantly increase your reach, engagement, and results. So now I'm going to hand it over to Jasmine, who's going to go over audience insights.
Great, thanks, Simran. And hopefully that's helped everyone to kind of start thinking about those audiences that you mentioned at the start and really start digging deeper into who they are. And it's interesting that it sounds like lots of you do feel like you're quite familiar with your audiences. And I suppose this section is going to be about how to make sure you really know your audiences through data, because it might be that you've got some great anecdotal knowledge of your audiences, which is really, really useful as well. But actually, we also want to make sure it's data driven too. So once you have a general idea of who your audience is, you can then go deeper to understand more about them using insights. And we get data from all those different digital platforms we use, like social media, Google Analytics, your email systems. And this can reveal helpful insights like who's engaging with your content, how they're engaging, and all of these things kind of add together as different clues that help you to really think about what you're doing well and where you might be missing the mark and any gaps that you have. So it can be really useful. It's all about using data to better understand your audience and know what actually resonates with them. So on the one hand, knowing a little bit about the people who already engage with you. So where are they based? What are their ages? And some basic details about them. But then thinking about the gaps. And so those audiences that you've figured out you do need to engage with, what is it they want to see? How are we going to reach them on those channels? And what actually resonates with them? So we often start with that idea of who we think our audience is, and we might be right, but we can then use the data to either confirm or challenge that and really give a clearer picture of who's interacting with us. And it's actually going to help you then be more specific in the changes that you make. We don't want to just kind of start changing strategies and throwing things out there, hoping that it works. If we can be data driven, then we can make sure that all the things that you do are evidence based and more likely to succeed. So you might discover that actually your most engaged audience on Facebook is completely different from the sorts of people who are opening your emails. Or maybe you thought a group was really engaged, but they're not actually engaging at all. But that's really helpful to find that out. You can really help to then target what content you put in your emails versus what content you put on your social media. So you can really focus your efforts on where they'll have the most impact. You can also then discover new audiences who might already be interested in your work, and perhaps there's an opportunity you weren't aware of amongst certain groups. You can tailor your messaging more effectively to the people that actually are engaging and are present on those different channels. So rather than actually guessing and trying to figure out who's listening, data lets us see who is interested, who is listening, and how we can engage with them. So over the next few moments, we're going to look at where you can find this data, how to interpret it, and how that actually feeds into creating audience personas, which we will explain as well. But it'll be also interesting if you have any particular challenges when it comes to learning more about your audiences, whether that's through finding the data, interpreting the data, do post in the chat and let us know. And as I go through this section, I can have a look through and see if there are any particular challenges that we can help address. And to start putting all of this into practice, I would really encourage you to explore your audience analytics over the next few weeks. So perhaps that's something you already look at regularly, but actually just have a look and see what it's telling you on kind of face value. And then we can also help to go deeper with that in a one-to-one as well. So if you've got a Facebook page, you've got some data. If you've got a website, you've got some data. So start with what you have. And this will help you to build a clear picture of who's already engaging with your content. And then we can look at how that compares to the audience groups that you want to build up that relationship with in the future. So the platforms you already have access to, we've got the Lightful platform. This includes analytics on your social posts that you share through the Lightful platform. And then each social media channel has built-in analytics tools, which actually are quite useful now. They didn't always used to be that good, but there's loads of data there, if anything, a bit much. So I'll show you where you can find the most useful bits in a moment. And then you can use Google Analytics if you're tracking your website traffic, and your email platform as well. If you're sending out emails, you can normally get some pretty good insights into engagement patterns and some trends through there. But if you haven't used these sorts of tools before, you could start with the Lightful platform and you can just have a quick look at how your content's performing across your different channels. But then to go into more detail, I'd really look at your different platforms individually, looking at analytics tools to find out who's engaging with your posts, what types of posts get the most likes, shares, or comments, or even how the engagement differs between different types of posts, and then also the audience demographics of your followers. And it really helps to know what your audience finds most compelling on each channel. So like Simran said, if you're posting the same thing across every channel, actually before you change that, you can compare what goes down well on different channels. And this helps you know where you might need to make those tweaks, where certain things are going to resonate more with some audiences over others. For example, the nonprofit I used to work at, we had some personas that explained who our audiences were on different channels. And we knew that our climate advocacy messaging was really well engaged with on Twitter. This was a long time ago, so I imagine it would change now, but we had really great supporters there who really bought into the message, they engaged in a certain way. If we posted that exact same content on Facebook, we'd get quite a different response. And actually our audience on Facebook were maybe less informed about those specific matters. And so we had to change that very slightly when we were sharing campaigns. But once you're comfortable with your social media metrics, then you can look at Google Analytics to see how people are getting to your website, which pages people look at the most, how they behave once they arrive. Are they staying on your page? Are they just leaving straight away? And what does that tell you about your website? You can see things like what device people are using, what browser. You can get some behavioral insights as well. And actually, if you realize everyone's accessing your website on their mobile phone, really think about that design. That's really important. So if you haven't used Google Analytics before, it is really helpful. The setup can be a bit technical, so let us know if you need any help with that. And then emails as well. Whatever platform you use can usually give you some insights like which subject lines get the most opens, what links people are clicking on, even what time of day generates the highest engagements. And so lots of them have an inbuilt kind of summary that can tell you a bit about your emails. So what can be really helpful is just to start looking at, see what's out there. Don't do like a one big deep dive straight away, but we as coaches can help you do that as well. And we have some resources on Lightful Academy for you to look at that in further detail. We've got an Introduction to Analytics e-learning course, which is a great place to start if you're new to this. And then later on in the programme, we do have a whole masterclass on analytics, but we'd love to help with any particular challenges in one-to-ones sooner than that, so we can help make sure you can get access to your data and start interpreting it. But I can see got some great questions in the chat about the challenges you currently have. So Alan, you're saying like the accuracy of information. Yeah, I think often when you go to the source, so for example, I'll show you in a minute where I go to look on Meta Business Suite for my post-interaction data. I can see that, and that's pretty clear cut. The bit that maybe you need to think a bit more around is some of the demographic data, because it's only based on the information made available by the profiles who have the certain privacy settings. So it's worth bearing that in mind when you look at that. But hopefully we can show you, yeah, some of those tools that you can look through. And Janina, a good question. If you haven't been tracking or you haven't posted in a while, you need to kind of have a bit of a fresh start. Would you start with the last available data as your guide? Yeah, I'd say if you have any data that kind of, if you're looking, maybe sounds like posting, so probably social media. If you've maybe had a break for a few months and you can look back at your previous posts, you can get a bit of a snapshot to see, okay, when we were posting, what sorts of posts were popular, which ones weren't, and get a bit of an insight to then start testing. And I think the great thing about social media and what I found over the years is you can post lots of different things on social media as a bit of a test to see, we think we've got this kind of audience. What happens when we post this in this format? Do we get an engagement? And so not being afraid to kind of experiment with that, and perhaps do a bit of a test of a month of regular posting and then analyze that data as well, which would be good to have a look at. But yeah, I think if you have any further challenges, let me know. And what I'm going to do now is just show you how I use Meta Business Suite to access some data. So it's just like a small page that I volunteer at that I've got up on screen. But if you have a business page on Facebook, you hopefully do. If you don't, let us know if you need any help, but you have access to the Meta Business Suite. And when you land on the homepage, you kind of get greeted with like loads of information. So I think I'll just point out the main places I would go to find out what is most useful for me. First, you've got this menu on the left-hand side, and I'll click on Insights. And they do change the layout quite a lot, which is always fun. So this is quite an overwhelming amount of information, but I can look in the first instance at an overview. So what I'm looking for is some trends. So where things have gone up, where things have gone down, what might have prompted that in terms of content, but also events that might have happened. So that's a really helpful first view where you can look at really easily. And then in terms of your audience, this is where you've got some of that demographic information. So we've got the split of gender, of age, of locations, and I can toggle between my Facebook and Instagram. And that's really helpful because then I can compare that. So in terms of the reliability of data, it does need to have a minimum amount of followers to do that. So that's quite helpful to know. But if I notice that actually my age range is different on Facebook versus Instagram, which it probably is, it would be quite unlikely to have the exact same picture on both of those channels, and I can adjust my content accordingly. Similar with those locations. So just in the first instance, a lot of people we go through this with are kind of do it in the first instance and think, oh, that's a bit surprising, or that maybe doesn't align with my assumptions. So just check, and maybe it does. Maybe you already check that regularly, and that's great as well. And then something else that I find helpful is looking at your content. So this has got all of your posts. It's got a lot of information, but what you can do is select your columns that you want to see. So I might say, okay, I want to see what posts are getting what types of engagement, and I can click those, I can apply it, and then when I've got my screen expanded, I'll be able to see that across here. And so what I can then think about is what posts are getting the most engagements, what posts are getting the least engagements, and what does that tell me about this audience and the people that are engaging on these channels. And you can then filter that. I've got Facebook and Instagram in here. You can include your stories, your reels, and everything there as well. So that can be helpful to get some of those insights too. And so I think those are probably some of the main places I would go. But if you're not sure where to start with that overview and just see some of those initial things that it tells you. So thinking about your content overview, and just breaking that down in terms of date range and the things that you've been running and the posts that you've been sharing and what actually is that telling you. And then you can go through that kind of content side of things. It's a really quick overview. We can absolutely help go into a lot more detail together as well. But if you just have like a spare 5 minutes and you have a quick scroll, I think getting some of those initial thoughts can be really helpful. And then, of course, we can go into more depth and we can look at that together if you need any help. But I think having that in the first instance is a really great kind of grounding point to look at those different audiences that you have too. Just having a look through the chat, I can see Savina's answering some questions in there as well, which is great. But of course, that data only tells you part of the story. I think it is really helpful to get that really concrete data, like how many people looked at a post, clicked on a link, opened an email. That's all that quantitative data, the numbers, and it gives you a really measurable sense of how your audience is behaving online. And that means you can track it. That works really well with the SMART goals we talked about. But of course, that doesn't tell you everything. We want to get a more complete human picture of your audience. And we also want to collect qualitative data, and that's that context, understanding the why behind the what. And we can gather that through a number of ways. You might have survey questions, interviews, focus groups, even things like comments on social media. If someone sent you an email, if you notice that you're getting lots of similar questions, that can even give a great insight into what your audience's needs are. But perhaps you might have low engagement and you're not sure why, and you're not really getting anything back to tell you. But perhaps you could run a quick survey or a quick poll and find out from your audience a little bit of insights into what they want to see. And even if people have maybe any criticisms, that can be really helpful. That gives you some direction of what it is people want to hear from you. So the quantitative data tells you what's happening, and then you can use the qualitative data to tell you why. And often that challenge is finding that more detailed level of information. So you might have those numbers and then think, well, how else do I find out more? And so you can do some intentional outreach. Perhaps you want to include short surveys in a newsletter. I've seen some people add in some really great optional questions to their donation or sign up forms, just having a free text box of things like what motivated you to support us today. And sometimes people have then left short messages about why they wanted to donate or why they wanted to volunteer. And then that gives you a really great wealth of information about people's motivations and what they really care about. And that helps you know what you can focus on in your comms as well. Also, if you have a group of people, maybe particular users or participants of a program that you have a relationship with, don't be afraid to ask them. I think just actually putting the question up there and finding out a bit of information can be really helpful. And you might not have all of that information right now today, which is absolutely fine, but just getting those insights to add up and build up that picture of who you're currently reaching and then who you want to reach can help you as you just gradually tailor your messaging further each time. And of course, once you've gathered the data, you need to make sure that you interpret it and not just have the numbers. It's turning those numbers into insights and really about asking yourself, so what, and what does this mean for your strategy, your content, your organization? So from that research, what do you now know about your audience's interests, needs, or behaviors that perhaps you didn't know before? And therefore, what should you do next based on this? And by asking these questions, you move from just noticing the trends to actually making strategic decisions. So even simply to that question of looking back over previous content, look at your best performing content and see what they have in common. Maybe it's social posts, it might be emails, which emails have the most open rates. And actually, it might be the visuals when it comes to social. So it might be, okay, people really like videos on Instagram, they prefer articles on LinkedIn. That's a great finding. But it might be the topic as well. So perhaps it's an impact story, perhaps it's a personal story, maybe it's really short, or perhaps it's long. And so all those different things can help you then to be really strategic in the content you create. And you can do the same with your lower performing content as well. So if there's anything missing, whatever it is, build up that picture. What's resonating and what's not. And the idea really is to stop it being a bit of a guessing game and then actually making those intentional decisions. But like I said, that also means you can test and learn. So if you think you've got a bit of a theory as to why maybe a certain subject line on an email worked well, then next time, why don't you do an A/B test and test 2 different versions and see if that is correct? And we can absolutely help with some of that data interpretation, some of that testing as well. So do let us know if we can help at all. And actually, what we're going to do next is think about how we're going to use that data and bring it to life through a digital strategy tool called Personas. So after you research and get insights into your audience, you can then create these personas to deepen your understanding of who your audience is. And it really is a way of representing that data in quite a tangible way. And it helps you to then enhance your content and your communications, helps you to really reach and engage your target audiences. And what this process is it's kind of narrowing your focus onto the audiences that you want to reach. Like Simran said earlier, we can't be reaching everyone all the time with every message, but realistically look at who your target audience is and how you want to connect with them. So just before we go into looking at your audience personas and what those are, we've got a poll that's come up on your screen, just asking if you already work with personas, if they're totally new to you. Either answer is fine. That just helps us know where we're starting from today. So I'll give you a few moments to fill in that poll. And then I will hand over to Simran to talk to us about personas. But thanks everyone for your votes. And also as we go through, feel free to keep questions coming. We really want to make sure that we're addressing any challenges you have, hopefully offering some helpful information and support as well. But it looks like so far a pretty even split from people that are actively using personas, not knowing what personas are. So we'll aim to do an introduction to personas, give you a tool to use and some examples, and also how to apply that. So hopefully that will be helpful for everyone here. But if anything isn't clear at any point, do drop us a message. And so I will hand over to Simran next. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine. So let's dive deeper into personas. So a persona is a fictional but data-informed representation of a key audience group. And we want you to think of it as a character that you create that embodies the traits, motivations, challenges, and needs of a specific segment of your audience. So they're not real people, but they're grounded in the real data that Jasmine just spoke us through. And so they're a blend of quantitative stats and also qualitative insights. And you might look at your website analytics, email engagement, social media interactions, and combine that with things like survey responses or interviews to build a well-rounded picture of who this person might be. And the goal is to bring your audience to life. So instead of targeting everyone, you're actually crafting your content for this specific person or persona in mind. And you might have one, or you may have two, three. It's completely up to you. And as you build out your persona, you'll start to uncover things like what motivates them to engage with your organization, what barriers might be stopping them from actually taking any action, and also how you can communicate in ways that are relevant and meaningful to them. For example, one audience group might be driven by lived experience, and then another actually may be driven by professional interests. And each will respond to very different language, content, and calls to action. And personas are useful not just for marketers, but across your whole team. They help everyone stay aligned and consistent when planning content, campaigns, or services. They also help you set clearer goals. So rather than broadcasting a single message to everyone, personas help you define what action you want each group to take and also how to guide them there. So essentially, at the heart of it, personas are all about humanizing your audience. You're using that data that you already have to create something that's tangible and relatable. So someone that you can actually picture when making decisions. So let's bring this to life with an example from one of our previous bridge cohorts, which is Ken Eco, which is an organization based in the Philippines and is focused on restoring nature. So they develop, finance, and manage high integrity, nature-based carbon projects across Asia Pacific. And their projects support land stewards, restore ecosystems, and also deliver measurable benefits for climate, biodiversity, and communities. And they do this by mobilizing capital, technology, and also community partnerships to regenerate the planet's most vital ecosystems. So we want you to have a little think. So have a think about who might interact with their digital channels. So think about what their persona might look like and post it in the chat. if you have any ideas. There's no right or wrong answer here, so feel free to just freeball. And also, we'd like you to think further about which platforms you might find this target audience on. So, what channel do you think they should also target this persona on? So, I'll wait for some answers to slowly come through. So, which persona do you think Keniko should um, create based on their mission and the services they provide? I feel like their mission is a bit similar to also some of the organizations that are on this call. So it may be worth kind of thinking also about yours and seeing that maybe they could apply given the information we've provided. We'll give a couple more minutes. We've got one answer coming in from Uyen, from Saigon Children, and they said they should target ESG manager from corporates that are interested in protecting the nature or environment. And I think LinkedIn would be a good channel. That's an excellent answer. And I think I see maybe you may have also used your own organization for inspiration for that one, I feel. But yeah, definitely corporates that are interested in nature and environment. So you've got their interests in, you've also got the kind of professional level or like the area in which they operate in, which is amazing. And also you've got the channel. I mean, perfect. You've hit the nail on the head with the LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is always a great answer when kind of trying to focus more professional, corporate, and also when you're trying to hyper focus on those certain interests or sector interests such as sustainability, climate, and the environment. So that's a really great answer. Thank you so much for sharing. And I won't put the pressure on the rest of you to take part because we actually went ahead and created our own persona. So, with everything in mind of what we've kind of shared around Ken Eco, where they talk about their partnerships as investment opportunities, and also as Uyen said, we've built a persona who's likely to be interested in funding Ken Eco and their projects. And here is our persona who we've called Sophia. So this is someone like a head of sustainability in a large consumer goods company. So we want you to think food, household, or even personal care brands, and their job is to deliver the company's net zero commitments and also find credible ways to address the emissions that they can't fully reduce. So the company values sustainability and they are looking for someone and opportunities to invest in climate solutions that have a positive impact on communities. And we've also gone a bit deeper and we've said that this person really cares about quality and trust. So it's really important to kind of think about the values of your persona to kind of see what values you can also call upon with your content to kind of help build that connection between you two. So here we've said they care about quality and trust, and they're also under pressure from leadership, regulators, and customers. So they need to invest in projects that are scientifically robust, transparent, and also have clear impact. And they're also particularly interested in nature-based solutions and tend to prefer long-term partnerships rather than transactional carbon purchases. They also want detailed impact data. So we're going to, because of bearing that in mind, we're maybe focusing our content on clear reporting and also confidence that the projects are managed well from end to end. So that's what we'll be kind of sharing information on, maybe on LinkedIn. And a partner like Kaneko appeals to them because it reduces risk, offers strong science and monitoring, and also delivers real social and environmental co-benefits. So essentially, this persona helps us understand not just what the organization offers, but also what this type of corporate audience is looking for. And so to go on to help me tailor my messaging so to make sure that I address and meet those needs. And with this in mind, we can actually look at where this persona actually spends their time online and what kind of content would really cut through for them. So this person's a head of sustainability, and so I'm assuming, and based on maybe the past data I've collected and my research online, I can assume that this person is highly active on LinkedIn and regularly reads industry-specific outlets. They also attend webinars and virtual events, partly to stay informed and also partly to benchmark what other peers are doing in that sector. And they also often watch short video content too, for example, project walkthroughs or monitoring demonstrations, because it helps them assess credibility quickly. And again, what resonates most with them is transparency. They want to see clear metrics, strong data, and examples that prove a project is scientifically sound and well managed. And they also respond well to case studies showing real community and biodiversity impact. So they're sharing this content they then go on to share this content internally with finance or leadership teams so it could be more polished, concise, and executive friendly. And one last final thing that I could probably pull from my persona is that human stories also land very well. So behind all of this data, actually what may be lying at the core is the need to kind of resonate and connect with the service users at hand. So this could be the farmers benefiting from agroforestry, the regenerated landscapes, or community partnerships. And these stories will help bring the technical work to life and also help them communicate value across their organization. So this is a very well thought through persona, and we'll actually be going through the persona tool in a little while, which kind of helps you break through this and also hopefully reach this level of depth when building your own personas. But actually, I want to have a look at Ken Eco's website right now, just to kind of look briefly at how they kind of meet this persona in real life. So there's just a few things to point out on their website. So when you're on their homepage, first of all, you can see that their main buttons and their call to actions say invest in nature and become a partner. So they don't have anything about find out more about sustainability, which they're or anything that's like very beginner foundational level. They know who they're targeting and they know that the person they're targeting already has knowledge in this area and are looking for actions. And then as we scroll down, you can see they have a clear, concise statement about what they do with another prompt for corporates or implementation partners. So really clearly detailing the two main target audiences of this website. And then if we click on for corporates and investors, you can see how they're appealing to different types of investors by listing them. And as we scroll down, you can see clear, compelling, and bite-sized information about their impact and the benefit for us as a potential funder. So we want you to definitely think about your persona's user journey when building your content or even your website. Um, and even your emails actually and your newsletters and think about what they want and how they will be approaching your content. So now I'm just going to quickly demo our persona creator, which I'm really excited to introduce to you because it's been created to help you identify your personas and also then to use them to create tailored content. So the persona creator will help you craft an audience persona and also offer immediate feedback. And it also provides focus and clarity to your audience personas. And you could also integrate it with your social media compose AI tool to help you tailor your social media posts according to your personas. So all you need to do is log into Lightful Platform. And then on the left-hand side, as you can see, it says personas. And then there we can see the option to create a new persona or to revisit one that we already have. And in this case, we have Sophia. So when you go on to that, when you click on your persona, you can see you could type in who is your persona? Are they a donor, service user, supporter, or other? And also what subtype. So it asks you to kind of be more specific. And then also, if you already reach this persona, is it a target persona or is it one that's already existing? And then when you click on next action, you can then delve a lot deeper and have a think about their occupation, their interests, where they live, and their age range and gender. So all these kind of things you may skip and accidentally forget to think about. It kind of provides a good prompt for that. And then we've also got some more prompts to kind of think about their habits, such as what platforms they exist on, what their average hours are and activity levels are, and also why might they engage with you. So thinking deeply about their barriers to accessing you, or also motivations to want to engage with you. And then when you click on next section, you can also go a lot deeper and maybe add in those values that you think will help resonate and connect with them. And then the best bit is, well, after you've given your persona a face, which is always fun, the best bit is you can then also add in information about your organization, click finish and review, and then also ask for AI feedback. So we're going to click yes, get AI feedback, and it takes a little bit of time because it's really thinking about it. And then once it generates it, it will give you some questions and some prompts that you may have not considered before. So when Lightful approaches AI, we're not going to write your whole persona for you until it's perfect, but more kind of asking you questions to kind of think a lot more deeper about maybe stuff you may have not considered. Um, and yeah, for instance, here we can see is asking us to contextualize the location and cultural influences, such as how being in the Philippines will shape their worldview, and if they're approaching it from another state, continent, what that relation is there. So we definitely recommend you to go ahead and try out this tool. And you could also at the end save and preview and also download it as a PDF and share it amongst your team. And then your final result will look like this. Okay, so once you've built your personas, um, unfortunately, your work isn't done. But in fact, this is actually where the fun part and the magic really begins, because then your persona should start guiding how you apply everything that you've learned about your audience across your communications. So this means thinking carefully about which channels you're using, the types of content you're creating, the messages or asks you're putting out, and whether all of this still aligns with your audience's needs and preferences. So pretty much all the work you've already done when using the AI tool. And also ask yourself, are you currently set up to succeed and engage them, or do you need to change how you're doing things? And a strong persona will help you decide not just what to say, but also where and how to say it. So let's quickly take a look at some of this in action. So here we can see a sponsored post from the National Trust, which is a nonprofit in the UK. And this post is focusing on families and showcasing their membership, which is a monthly donation plan, and highlighting the difference that members can make protect nature, beauty, and history. But also the benefits that members have. And as this organization cares for historic houses, gardens, and areas of land such as woodland and coastland, which members can then visit for free. So as you can see, they use eye-catching appeals that match the needs of that specific audience. And you can see that is really aimed at families through their imagery and also the language that they're using, such as family with two adults annual membership or family with two adults. That's me just repeating myself, but also kind of giving the idea of what else they can kind of discover over there. And then we've got our next one, which is a email campaign. So this is an example of a nonprofit's email that really targeted their audience, and it's from Charity Water. So it's an email that's been sent to donors to a campaign that they're running, and the email reflects the relationship that the reader already has with the nonprofit, and it also shows how the money that the reader donated is being used. And then finally, we have a website layout, which I was touching on earlier. But this example is from the Children's Organ Transplant Association. And you can see that it's clearly laid out for different audiences. And the menu has a section for families, for volunteers, and for professionals. And then it's also got a bit more information about the organization and ways to give. But if you have just landed on this page and you fit into one of those target audience groups, you will know where you next need to take your action or where you need to kind of click next. And it makes it really simple for those different groups to find the information that they're looking for. So this is a really good example of a website that is catering to more than one persona. In fact, maybe two or three, and also keeping it accessible, making sure it's not targeting, excluding any of their audience groups. So, yeah, I mean, after everything I've shared, I hope all of you have had a little think maybe about your own kind of audience groups, or maybe there's an audience group that you haven't maybe built a persona for. So let us know. After this session, who might you create a persona for? So think about an audience group that you'd like to engage more effectively. And if you're unsure, maybe you could think about a group that you do often communicate with, and maybe face barriers in trying to get through to, or maybe there's something that motivates them. So do share in the chat, and let us know what audience groups you start creating personas for after this session. And while you do that, and while I wait for the answers to come through, just for the sake of time, I'm just going to quickly go through our next steps. So now that you've started month two, here are your key actions for the month, which is focused on identifying and engaging your target audiences. So we've just completed your masterclass. So now your next steps are to identify your target audiences, unpack your audience data, and start creating your personas. And you could do this by taking the Lightbolt Academy courses in this month's playlist, which Sabina will share a link to, and then also using the persona creator on the Lightful platform. And we've also created a monthly checklist to help you stay on track with your bridge learnings. And we'll also share the resource in the chat and also over email, where we'll be reminding you each month, with prompts in your WhatsApp chat. And you could join that, by scanning these QR codes. And I'm also going to launch a final poll, which has already been launched. So do let us know. Do you plan to create personas for your audience? How confident do you feel about understanding your audience? And also, how useful did you find this session? Um, if you also want to delve deeper into your personas, feel free to book a one-to-one or a coaching call. As we do know, we had to rush the latter part of this session, and there's still so much to kind of talk about and delve deeper in with you all. But I just want to take this opportunity to highlight and spotlight a bonus live session that we have coming up, which is for all of our bridge participants from around the world. Um, because of this, we realized that it's not a convenient time for most of you on the call today. So we would encourage you to register for the session in order to receive the recording, which will then be sent out afterwards. But don't feel any pressure to join live. We will be recording it and make sure you still have access to all of the learnings and resources. If you then have further questions after watching the recording, we'd be happy to spend time going into detail into our coaching calls. But this session is all about, helping you create digital content in a valuable way that kind of really relates to what we kind of covered in this session today, in a way that kind of meets your audiences. And also we'll be covering topics like creating brand guidelines, and also giving live demos on creating a reel, and also, certain, content that will most appeal to you. So apologies for having to rush the latter part of this live session, but I'm just going to leave 2 minutes here for maybe any questions that any of you may have. So if you do have any questions or thoughts about anything we explored today, please do come off mute or share in the chat. I can see Sophia shared, her potential audience personas, which is amazing. It seems like a lot of thought has also gone through with it. So we can see you said your first potential persona is your CSR ESG decision makers, and you've gone a lot deeper into thinking that they are people who decide on partnerships, funding, and corporate volunteering. Amazing. And then your second half is your youth volunteers. And definitely right in saying maybe Instagram is the best platform for them, and also understanding them helps create content that inspires participation and builds long-term support. So you know what kind of actions you want to inspire, and that's a long-term relationship and also one that kind of inspires participation. So thank you so much for sharing. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining us today. It's been amazing seeing all of you here. And if you do again want to delve deeper into this, please do feel free to book a coaching call. But thank you. Hope you enjoy the rest of your days. Bye.